Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. We are not going to talk about my hair because it is pathetically hot, and that's all anyone needs to know. Today I thought I would sit down and go through my read books on Goodreads and pick out those that have the biggest discrepancy between my rating and the average star rating on Goodreads, in a way to see how much my opinion differs from popular opinion. So I've got my phone here. I'm going to try to record my screen and we'll go through this, and this should be fun. I'm already on the books that I've read, and I have them sorted by the average star rating on Goodreads. So it looks like we're starting with the lowest average rating on Goodreads. So what I'm looking for to begin are books that I've rated really highly that have the lowest average rating. And already, third book in, I mean, trust me, I agree with the first two books, The Apartment and Midnight, definitely. But the third book on the list is The Cabin at the End of the World. This has a 3.29 average star rating on Goodreads. I rated it 5 stars. This book is by Paul Tremblay. It is the second book by the author that I had read, the first being A Head Full of Ghosts. And I mean, A Cabin at the End of the World is one of my favorite books. And reading A Cabin at the End of the World made me like A Head Full of Ghosts even more, because it became clear to me that Paul Tremblay was trying to do something very specific in his books. He is specifically presenting the reader with a question and a determination that they need to make for themselves. And as the author, he's not going to help you. He's not going to give you the answer. He wants you to do that on your own. So let's see what people have to say about A Cabin at the End of the World. I mean, still, to be fair, like 30% were 4 stars, 33% were 3 stars. Both, but 2 stars has more votes than 5 stars. So Angie, 4 stars. Look at you. Jacqueline from Weeby Bookin' rated it 5 stars, and that's saying something, because Jacqueline and I don't often walk away with the same opinions of books. So I'm super excited that she also rated it 5 stars. Pretentious writing is not enough to redeem this violent novel and completely flat ending. People are very angry about it, this is a very polarizing book. Boring. Wow, this one calls him a one-hit wonder. That's rough. So many people have referenced The Cabin at the End of the World as a home invasion story. And home invasion is kind of like one of those horror thriller tropes that exist. But I think to call A Cabin at the End of the World a home invasion story really cheapens the book, because I don't think that's what it is at all. I think that a home invasion takes place in this story, but to me that's not what it's about. It's not the point. I think that there's something greater at play in this novel than that. And so part of me has always wondered if people expecting a traditional home invasion story, or expecting the invasion of the home to be just the main plot point, if that's what's not disappointing most people. I can't say that I hate that it's called a home invasion story, but I think that that is a very simplistic way to look at this book. So, not gonna lie, like The Toll by Sherry Priest, like I only gave it 3 stars, but I'm really surprised that its average rating is so low at 3.41, because I don't think that it did anything bad. So while my rating does match up with popular opinion, I would think that this type of book would have way more fans. Seemed like a perfectly good example of Southern Gothic horror to me, but only 3.41. Sweet Salvation, good heavens. I rated that sucker 1 star, and I can't believe that the average rating isn't 1 star. That was absolute garbage trash. Go read my Goodreads review for Sweet Salvation if you want to know anything about it. I refuse to talk about it. 99% Mine by Sally Thorne. God, what a disappointment. I rated it 2 stars. Goodreads has it at a 3.45, so that's kind of a discrepancy, though I'm glad it's not rated as highly as something like The Hating Game. This was a sophomore effort. I did a review on it on this channel. I really wanted to read it because so many people had such great things to say about The Hating Game, which I hadn't read at the time. And if 99% Mine was my only experience, introduction, or knowledge of Sally Thorne, never have read The Hating Game. I mean, 99% Mine was so bad. And I'm not sure how people can overlook the badness of it. Of the people that I follow, or friends or followers, etc., on Goodreads, like one person rated it 4, the rest of us did 3s or 2s. Oh, well, Jessica at Peace Love Books rated it 5. I mean, what do people like about this? What incarnation did I just read? This is an ARC reviewer, somebody who received an ARC saying, what incarnation did I just read? Sally Thorne really, really flopped with this book. I agree, sister. But let me find somebody who loved it. Read this twice in the same year, and there will be many more rereads to come. Perfect story. Sally Thorne is a national treasure. And I'm not bashing Sally Thorne. In fact, when I reviewed 99% Mine, I think I made it a point to kind of speculate at why there was such a discrepancy between the quality of The Hating Game and 99% Mine, or maybe it was after I reviewed The Hating Game. I'm not entirely sure. May have been in my most disappointing books of 2019. I don't know. Anyways, I made it a point to say that, you know, at one point Sally Thorne had teased her follow-up to The Hating Game, and it was actually advertised in the back of the copy of The Hating Game that I have. And that book got shelved, and it never got released. And then over a year later, here comes 99% Mine. I think it was rushed. I think it was the pressure to repeat the success of The Hating Game. And I don't think it was her. I don't think it was the story that she wanted to tell. I don't know what happened with the book that got shelved, and I don't even remember what it was called at this point. But it just seems to me like 99% Mine was putting something out there to fulfill a deal, or to try to make the publisher more money, or to trade on her name while her name was still popular. It just wasn't developed. And I can say that confidently because The Hating Game is one of the most well-written romance novels I've ever read. Like, I can't think of something that The Hating Game did wrong. And 99% Mine did almost everything wrong. If there wasn't any hype surrounding either book and you just presented them both to me, I would never, ever in my entire life think they were written by the same person. The Bird Eater by Anya Alborn, I rated it 5 stars. It has a 3.48 average reading on Goodreads. This book is tough. This book is, as an Anya Alborn fan, great. I rank it second. You know, A Brother by the author will always be my number 1 book. But The Bird Eater, I think, comes in second. And there are a lot of people who don't like it. There's Angie again with the 5 star. I was expecting it to be so much better. The problem with this story was the main character. His self-loathing exhausted me. So basically, I mean, that one sounds like, you know, a problem with the reader liking characters. And I got to tell you, I think that as I read more genres or subgenres, this opinion might change. But in my experience, horror is the genre where likability factors in the least. It's almost dangerous to really like your characters in a horror novel, because your heart's going to get broken when they meet some tragic and disgusting end. So likability for characters in horror novels, you know, I do need to relate in some way. I'm not going to lie. Like, I need to know that what the character is feeling is something akin to what I would feel in the same situation, but I don't have to like them. I mean, it's probably better if you don't. It's probably better if you don't like your characters in your horror novels. This book had the biggest plot hole of all plot holes. This is going to ruin it for me. I mean, it just says, that one character is a ghost hunter, and yet this house that is supposedly haunted. I mean, they haven't done any research on this house. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really find that a plot hole. The first chapter was really good, but unfortunately it was the best part of the book. Alborn's writing is a bit much. A bit much of awesomeness. I mean, this isn't a reaction to other people's reviews. This is just me wanting to know why my opinions differ so much from others. I wanted to like this book. I even liked the cover, but it was just not meant to be. I could not believe the horrible choices the characters made over and over. Just because you knew someone when they were 14 does not mean they can vanish, reappear 21 years later, and you still know them. The characters just aggravated me. Yeah, I mean, the characters are not likable in this book. There's not many redeeming qualities. Someone DNF'd it. Again, it seems pretty polarizing. Like, the high reviews are high. I see a few 3 stars, but I see mostly 4s or 5s or 2s. Dear God, Inferno. Listen, I'm going to let you know a little secret. Inferno is a book that I promised that I would never highlight or talk about on this channel because it's that bad. It is garbage. It is and will always be my most hated book of all time. And that's saying something. Wow, how do you like this? This is definitely the most disturbing book I've read. Not only is this one hell of a roller coaster, it's vile and extremely twisted. I couldn't put it down. I love this book. This is the book that I straight up finished and walked into my kitchen and threw it in the garbage can. I couldn't in good conscience get this copy of this book to anybody else's hands. That's how bad it was. I can't believe people liked it. So here's the thing, and I don't want to stoke your curiosity about this book, but I will just briefly say that, people seem to love it because it's shock horror, because it's full of things that no sane person even dreams about putting in a book. It is shock horror for the sake of shock horror. There's nothing in it that actually resembles a story. This is a classic example of a plot being built around all of these shocking things that you actually want to put into your book. There is no worthwhile story to be told. I'm not even sure the point. The point is simply to disgust people. And I'm not even talking about gore. It's depravity is what it is this book is full of shocking depravity in order to, I guess, make desensitized readers actually feel something for a change, but it is absolute garbage. I mean, what do you know? I rated Twilight 2 stars. I don't even remember rating Twilight. I don't even remember reading Twilight, but apparently I rated it 2 stars. Probably did that significantly after reading it. What else do we have? Looking for something that I rated. 4-Week Fiance by Helen Cooper was another 1 star for me, but 3.64 average rating on Goodreads. It was just bad. It was bad writing. First of all, nothing happened in this book because it's meant to be the first in a series or duology or trilogy. I don't even know. But nothing happens in this book. You're left with an open-ended portion of a story, and it's bad. It's the characters are very stereotypical, and there's a level of immaturity in it, not only the storyline but also the writing. It's just it was bad, but apparently some people actually liked it. Love how determined Mila is to get with TJ. Yeah, it's so bad. It's one thing for people to not like a book that you love, but for people to love a book that you don't like, that seems to me to be way more, it's just way more upsetting to me. I don't care. Train. Damn it. Lost You by Helen Beck. That was a 5-star read for me, hands down. But I definitely understand it only being a 3.69 average rating on Goodreads because there's so much about that book that I shouldn't have liked, and yet I did. I imagine that a lot of people have problems with the storytelling. A lot of people probably think it was slow. A lot of people probably have major problems with an event that takes place in the book. The Poison Tree by Erin Kelly. God, I hated that book. That was a pick my book back before I took my booktube break. So I rated it 2 stars. It has a 3.69 average rating on Goodreads. And while that is a big discrepancy in my taste versus popular opinion, I can understand that. It's just, this book was not at all to my taste and marketed to me. Like, this book is marketed to me, yet it's not anything that I would ever want to read. It's just slow and boring. It was bad. The Perfect Illusion by Wrenshaw. This is, God, not gonna lie, that breeze felt amazing. Wrenshaw is the pseudonym for Minka Kent. I have a whole video on Minka Kent. And again, The Perfect Illusion, I rated it 2 stars. It has a 3.81 average rating on Goodreads. This just had a gigantic plot hole in this book for me, and not based on, well, I think a character would be more likely to do this, because those aren't plot holes. Like, the characters are what the characters are, and so that's not a plot hole. Like, if you think a book doesn't make sense because a character would more likely do something different, and that different action would affect the plot, like, I don't agree. I don't think that's necessarily a plot hole. But The Perfect Illusion had a major plot hole. And it had to do, if I can remember correctly, with a woman pretending to be the fiance of her boss. Yes. So she goes to quit her job. Her boss is like, no, you can't quit. In fact, I want to pay you a ridiculous amount of money to pretend to be my fiance. So she does to get the money, only, spoiler alert, she's pregnant when she accepts. And she's pregnant as the result of a one-night stand. And so she knows who the father is, but he's not in the picture. So she goes with this man to his family's home, and she's pretending to be his fiance, but it's revealed that the child she's carrying is not his. But they've told everybody that they've been together for so long. So ultimately what's happening is they've outed her as a cheater. They've outed her as a cheater, and I just don't understand. Oh my God, I loved this story. Loved it. From the beginning to the end. Amazing writer with passion and intensity, and just nails the stories. I think this is Winter's BFF. Not gonna lie. I love this author. Everyone knows that. I've always gushed about her books. Of course, that was someone who didn't really care much for it. Thank you, Kiki. Kiki says, there is no way in hell that the main issue could have been worked out this easily. It was beyond oversimplified. This book was a disaster. Thank you. See, I started this out to read differing aspects from my own, and I just keep looking for validation in people who felt similarly to me. My favorite story premise. I can agree. In the premise being fake fiance, fake dating. I love a fake dating romance in which love magically blooms. I'm there for it. But this one, again, that I could not get past the glaring plot hole of it all. Really love the writing style. I cannot stand Minka Kent / Winter Wrenshaw's writing style, which is really over the top twists. Really unlikely things happen in her books, and I can't relate, because again, as somebody who reads to feel things, I need to relate, and I can't relate to something that is so ridiculously far-fetched. And it's disappointing because in a Winter Wrenshaw book or Minka Kent book like the Stillwater Girls, where I'm really invested in the character, to then be slapped across the face with something so ludicrous really offends me. Really offends me, just like big time. As somebody who is not necessarily good at written reviews, Let me back up. I'm not good at speaking reviews either, video reviews. I'm not claiming that. But when it comes to like written reviews on Goodreads, to me, it's super obvious when somebody is speaking review. I think it's obvious in a written review when somebody's not speaking sincerely. I want to know how you felt about the book. I want to know what you thought about the book. I don't want you to throw adjectives at me that I could find in any official book critic's positive and or negative review, because people don't talk like that. Real people don't talk like that. Real people don't review books like that. Like, unless you are being paid to review books, I think that it just rings really untrue when you say something like flawless writing. This author's writing is flawless. No, it's not. You read cheesy romance, it's great. I read cheesy romance, but don't get on Goodreads and act like you're reviewing classic literature. I mean, I think it's sensationalized. I think that what this video is turning into something way different. Criticism of reviews. 1 star for Him by Carrie Haywood. This is a 3.72 average rating on Goodreads. It's another romance novel, which I have some opinions about that as well. Typically, romance readers are much easier to please from a review standpoint. I don't know if it's that they're more positive and optimistic and less critical. My problem with Him, and I don't remember much about it, I'm not gonna lie, but my problem with Him was that, and this is a common problem in second chance romance, is that the thing that tears two people apart, or the thing that makes two people turn on each other and then eventually hook back up so that you can have a second chance romance, the thing is usually or is a lot of times a miscommunication. And Him is one of the most blatant examples of that I've ever seen. Like, not only, if I'm remembering correctly, not only is the event that tore them apart a miscommunication, but then they meet again on a plane and have a perfectly civil and personal conversation. And I just feel like it's in the very beginning of the book when they see each other again on a plane. They're stuck on a plane. They're talking to each other. Like, let's not forget, why in the world would they be on the same plane? What a coincidence. But anywho, if I meet somebody again from my past that I had a huge beef with in my past, even if it's someone that I was in an intimate relationship with, like, if I'm stuck next to them on a plane and we're forced into conversation anyway, that conversation is eventually going to turn into the incident, or it's going to turn to the incident. And I'm going to say something like, dude, all right, let's just get it all out on the table. Let's talk about it. This is what happened. He's going to say, oh, really? Well, this is what happened. And then he's going to admit that he's, grown super close to my family and practically moved in. I believe that's where this story goes. And I'm not going to be taken off guard by that when I get off the plane, say goodbye to him, and then show up at my house and he's there. Just contrived. This book was super contrived. Your Daddy by B.B. Hamill. Freaking terrible. 1 star review. The fact that it has a 3.74 average rating on Goodreads makes me want to throw my phone against the wall. This book was terrible. I don't even want to talk about it. 19 Souls by J.D. Allen. I rated it 2 stars. It has a 3.81. To be honest with you, I don't even remember what that book is about. I think it's about 19 people dying. Wrong Number, Right Guy by L. Casey. Don't even remember it. See, that's why I got a 2 star from me. Apparently it was more memorable to other people. Here's an interesting one. The Last Thing I Saw by Alex Sinclair. Now, if you've been watching this channel for a while, then you know this book. This was a Pick My Book winner, but this book, I had 2 copies of this book under different titles because it was a self-published novel called, I can't even remember, Don't Let Me Die. It was a self-pub novel called Don't Let Me Die, and then it was picked up and traditionally published by, I forget who, I don't feel like looking for it, under a different name. So you guys chose for me to read Don't Let Me Die. I realized that I had another book that another book by Alex Sinclair, and I think that's how I uncovered that they were the same novel published under two different names with some editing choices made. But here's the problem. Like, if you had done any research at all and read the synopsis of Don't Let Me Die, you spoiled The Last Thing I Saw. The Last Thing I Saw takes the premise of Don't Let Me Die and makes it the twist of the novel. I was spoiled for it. I was ruined. But people have rated it highly, and there are people that I am friends with or following on Goodreads that also want to read it. God, what did people like about it? It's hard for me to be objective about this book because it was spoiled for me, because it was a situation I was not at all happy with, having had to purchase two different versions of the same book. Absolutely amazing. A thrilling, heart-pounding, brilliant tale deftly told by a master of the art. Hard to believe that this is a debut, as the author is skillful at surely and completely grabbing the reader's attention as this brilliant story masterfully unfolds, racing towards a stunning climax, an unput-downable and fabulous debut by an exceptionally talented author to watch. That's what I mean by a sensationalized review. She might as well just say, I really liked this book. If you love page-turning psychological thrillers, plus you like the author K.L. Slater and B.A. Paris, this is the book for you. I don't think I've read K.L. Slater. I have read B.A. Paris, and not even on the same level. Firestarter by Stephen King. That one has a 3.88 average. I rated it 2 stars. I couldn't stand that book. It got 2 stars because it's Stephen King, and he's very detailed in his storytelling, and I mean, he can tell a story. This just was not a story that I wanted to read at all. So there's that. Undertow by Alessandra Tori. I rated it 2 stars. It has a 3.95 average. Alessandra Tori is an erotic romance author, and she's probably more well known on BookTube because of her Girl in 6E series, the Deanna Madden series that she published under the name A.R. Tori. But Alessandra Tori is reserved for her erotic romance. And she's got a big fan base, and she is a personality, a social media personality. And, you know, she does a lot of the right stuff, technically, to self-publish novels, to get them out there, to churn them out, to publicize them. She is a very unique writer. And I think at one point I actually filmed a video about giving Alessandra Tori a second chance, and I don't think that I ever posted it on YouTube. I'm gonna have to go back and dig through my stuff and see. But like, the thing about Alessandra Tori is, first of all, she writes erotic romance, and it is unapologetic erotic romance. Yes, there is romance in her stories, but her stories are heavily fueled by sex and sexuality, and there's nothing wrong with that. But people who are looking for a traditional or typical romance might be a little bit surprised by that. She writes very unsympathetic characters. She's a very unique writer, and I guess that I would say, you know, if you're interested in that type of book, to definitely check it out. This one in particular, Undertow, I rated it 2 stars. It has nearly a 4-star rating on Goodreads. It has a very unique concept in which a woman who is in a polyamorous relationship, so she lives with one man and she has a boyfriend on the side, and they know the situation. Nobody's cheating on anybody. They know the situation. But then she gets in an accident. Like, she might die. So the fiance or live-in husband or boyfriend or whatever, the guy that she lives with has to reach out to her boyfriend and tell him, you know, she could die. And they've never met. And so the concept is interesting, and the concept draws you in. And there's a lot of Alessandra Tori synopses that I really can get behind, that sound really good. But then the books are always written with this tone that I find off-putting, this unapologetic self-indulgence. Like, her characters are inconsiderate, and her characters are selfish, and her characters are materialistic and shallow, and that is consistent. I think I've read 4 books now, and that rings true in each. And so I'm not surprised that any of her books would be rated highly, but I'm not there for it. I think I liked one really well, and I can't call to mind what that one was. So Chasing Red, 4.01 average star rating on Goodreads. Chasing Red by Isabel Ronan is a story that started out on Wattpad. If that tells you anything, it should tell you something. One of the angstiest books that I've ever read. I will definitely admit that it is very angsty, and I like angst, but the story is super weak. I love this book and its characters so much it's not even funny anymore. Caleb and Red are the cutest couple ever, though Red sometimes really, really annoys me. She is a really strong character and fights for what she wants. I recommend this book to anyone, really. Okay, as a side note, I rated Wallbanger 5 stars. It does have a 4.06 average star rating on Goodreads, so there's not really anything to talk about here, with the exception that Wallbanger is one of the funniest romance novels I've ever read. So if you haven't, I highly suggest that one. Also highly suggest the next one, or the series that the next one sits in. It's Playing for Keeps by R.L. Mathewson. R.L. Mathewson writes laugh out loud romances. Not even kidding. Hilarity. Nosferatu by Joe Hill. Okay, so I DNF'd that rather famously here on YouTube. I definitely did DNF it. Rachel, The Shades of Orange. I deeply respect her opinions of horror novels specifically, and she rated it 5 stars. She loved it. One of her favorite horror novels, which is really saying something because Rachel reads a lot of horror novels. So check out her channel if you haven't. You definitely should. Chandler Ainsley also DNF'd this book. That's interesting. Gabby Reads rated this 2.5 stars. Natasha, My Reading is Odd. It took me a second to remember her channel name. But Natasha, My Reading is Odd, rated at 5 stars. But I knew that. I had watched Natasha's review of Nosferatu before I ever started reading it. So I knew that she really, really liked it. Will Wheaton rated this 5 stars. Joe Hill tells another wonderful story that is scary, disturbing, beautiful, sad, and surprisingly touching. Read all the way to the end. All the way. Read it all the way to the end, all the way. Yeah, maybe it turns around. Maybe something happens that makes it touching. But I got to tell you, like, I hated every single person that appeared in that book. And I did not find it touching at all, Mr. Will Wheaton. I will not compare Stephen King's son to him. I will not compare Stephen King's son to him. Exactly. Joe Hill deserves to be in a class of his own, don't you think? I put off reading Nosferatu for a while. I read Heart-Shaped Box first, which I really liked, but this was much better. So many friends said, you have to read Nosferatu. Oh, you haven't read Nosferatu? What is wrong with you? Why haven't you read Nosferatu? What are you, stupid? One of those friends was Stephanie, and fighting it became pointless. Have I mentioned before that Stephanie is difficult? I think I have a time or two. Who is this? I don't know who this is. But apparently other people do, and they know her friends. Somehow I went into reading Nosferatu having no idea what it was about. I knew there was an old scary dude and some kidnapped children and a Christmas theme, but that was about it. I highly recommend doing that because this book was full of so many surprises. One of my favorite books of all time. So unique, so dark and amusing, so full of references to King works, so replete with character and world development. I find myself in complete awe of its incredible awesomeness. Yeah, I mean, Nosferatu is something that, like, I completely respect people's opinions, and it's one of those books that I read and knew that I had a different take on the book than 99% of the people on the planet who had read it. I knew that. So it's one of those books that I read, like, feeling 100% like there was something wrong with me. You just have to go back and watch my DNF review of it. But, like, I knew how well loved this was. So I'm not at all surprised, nor do I feel salty that so many people love it. It's an epic horror novel. You know, I'm always happy to see something come along in the horror genre or in the romance genre that makes mainstream pay a little bit more attention. Nosferatu was definitely more intense than any of the King novels that I read. So I think while Stephen King is kind of a mainstream horror author, I think that Joe Hill is a horror author that is sometimes mainstream. And I think that those kinds of authors do way more for the genre than mainstream authors who dip into horror. Controversial opinion, I know that, and you probably are going to come for me. I love you all anyway. Just know that. The Stillwater Girls, seriously, I can't even believe. Ugh. Here's another one. This is probably the last one I'm going to talk about. Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. Another romance novel. It's a taboo romance, forbidden romance, age gap romance. It's about a teenage girl who falls for her boyfriend's father. And 3 people that I follow rated it 5 stars, Chandler, Gabby, and Shelby. And I think Penelope Douglas is another person that has a pretty impressive fan base. So what was my problem with it? Let's first establish what I hated about it. I'd probably have to go back and watch my own review of it, but I do remember very much detesting the fact that a father would make the choices that he made with regard to his son. Quite frankly, a piece of ass was more valuable to this man than his relationship with his son. I found that troublesome. Even though the son is a bit of a D-bag, like, I think that's the other thing, is that he's really blown out of proportion as a character, because he has to be. He has to be the worst person on the planet in order for the reader to even begin to feel like these circumstances are acceptable. If this is a nice guy, then the villains of your story are the girlfriend and the father hooking up. Like, it was so contrived and manipulative. Believe me, I see all the 5 stars. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know if it is he loves the son more than anything in the world. I mean, people 5-star this book so hardcore. Like, this is not a polarizing novel. This is something that people are 5-starring over and over and over and over again. And I'm not gonna lie, I could read thousands of these 5-star reviews and still not understand it. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. I mean, I am there for forbidden romance. It's not that I was offended. It's just that I don't buy it. I lied. There's one more book I want to talk about. Geez, I could keep going on and on and on and on and on. There's something that makes me different from other romance readers, and I don't mean better, and I don't mean worse. There's just something that makes me different. Right around the time that I read Birthday Girl, I also read Vicious by L.J. Shin. And that was a book that I gave 2 stars, and it has a 4.16 average rating on Goodreads. Vicious is a story of this punk kid who basically bullies a girl whose mother works in his house, and then at the end of the book, I'm supposed to believe that she's in love with him, and he's cruel and a jerk and the redeemable douchebag, but he's not. So Chelsea from Chelsea Darling Reads says, this book was perfectly fine, but I kind of struggled with suspending my disbelief. I think I have learned that I'm just not ever going to be a huge fan of dark romances, and I'm hecka bummed because they all sound so great. I can just never buy into the actual execution. I don't even remember the events of this story. I just remember that in context, this guy was absolute garbage to this perfectly sweet girl, and then somehow years later is still garbage to her, continues to degrade her and call her help, but he's absolute garbage to her, and she somehow falls for him. Glutton for punishment, I guess. I don't know, but I mean, so many people like the redeemable douchebag, and I guess I'm just beyond that. I did that for 15 years of my life, the lusting after the bad boy, and actually married one. And I gotta tell you, like, that was an experience that you just need to have as a girl, as the bad boy appeal, because if a man appeals as a bad boy, chances are he's bad. I don't have any patience or tolerance for the bully romances. innate disrespect for women and his self-indulged perception of himself. I mean, that basically ties it up. I hated this guy. And like I had said earlier, when I was talking about it not being necessary to like my characters in horror novels, the genre that it is impossible for me to read without liking my characters is romance. Because the whole point of romance is to enjoy the journey, because you know where the end is. It's not about getting to the end, because you know the end. So you have to enjoy the journey of a romance, and I can't enjoy the journey of a book if I don't like the people that I'm spending all that time with, the characters that I'm getting to know, the characters that I'm supposed to be rooting for. If one of them is a bully, jackass, douchebag, I don't like him, and I'm certainly not going to spend my time hoping that this girl falls for him. What I'm going to do is spend my time hoping that I can jump into the novel, pull her aside, and say, "Girl, what you doing? Like, here's $200. Get a bus ticket. Get out of here. Get away from this guy." I mean, those are some examples of where my opinion definitely differs from popular opinion. I don't know if the same is going to be true here on this channel or not. I mean, you guys watch me and watch my videos for a reason. So maybe you feel exactly the same way that I do, or maybe you learned something that you didn't know before. You probably also picked up that there are a lot of super popular booktubers that I really like and I really enjoy watching, and I really respect their opinions, but do not agree with on some books in some cases. So I don't know. I just was trying to update Goodreads to things that I've read recently and started diving into that line of thinking, like, oh, I wonder what I've rated lowly that people have rated highly, and vice versa. And I thought it would be interesting to sit down and chat about it and maybe come up with patterns, or just making conversation about the types of books I read, the type of reader that I am. So hopefully this wasn't boring. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all very soon.